Thank you all for coming. My name is Anna Ozier-Bloomer. I'm one of the assistant directors here in career development at SVA. I'm so excited that Mary Virginia Swanson is here to talk with you all tonight and be sharing her wisdom with us. For those of you who don't know her, she's an author, educator, and consultant who helps artists find the strengths in their work, identify appreciative audiences, and present their work in an informed, professional manner. A trusted mentor and advisor, her public seminars and lectures on marketing opportunities have proven to aid photographers in moving their careers to the next level. In 2013, Swanson received the Focus Award for Lifetime Achievement in Photography from the Griffin Museum of Photography in Boston. She travels often for speaking engagements and regularly gives back to many nonprofit organizations in our field, including Infoco, the Griffin Museum, the Houston Center for Photography, the New Orleans Photo Alliance, the Blue Earth Alliance, and the Society for Photographic Education. The second edition of her fantastic book, Publish Your Photography Book, which is available for purchase over here after the seminar, co-authored with Darius Himes, was published in March by Princeton Architectural Press, and I hope you were all able to attend her fantastic event last week at the New York Public Library. Her upcoming self-published title, Finding Your Audience, An Introduction to Marketing Your Photographs, offers practical information for artists wishing to bring their work to broader audiences. Her publications, articles, and blog are invaluable resources for photographers. And if you're not following her yet, you should definitely start that absolutely immediately at mvswanson.com. So after the talk, Mary Virginia will be selling her books over here that are signed by herself and Darius Himes. So please join me in welcoming Mary Virginia Swanson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all so much. I'm really excited to be here. There's nothing I enjoy more than having a chance to talk to a group of students, especially at the end of the semester. I think that the great opportunity for all of you is that there are so many people that are interested in photography. Yes, there are more that are using their cameras, but there's more people that want to live with work, hire photographers, use their images, your images in book jacket design, all different kinds of opportunities. So what I'm going to try and do is give you an overview of the kinds of things that will be new opportunities for all of you. One of my favorite illustrations of the fact that we have so many new people interested in photography is an exhibition that was held at Foam in Amsterdam. Have any of you seen this picture before? It's the number of images that were uploaded to Flickr in a 24-hour period that have been printed out. And when we start to sort of quantify and put into the physical world how many images we're really speaking about in a 24-hour period, unbelievable, right? Such an interesting concept. Eric Kessels was the artist that put that together. All of that translates, as far as I'm concerned, to all of you into new markets. And that's where I really want you to understand the new opportunities, the new language that's required, the new pricing structures, all kinds of things that will relate to that. So things like Williams-Sonoma Homes selling limited edition signed prints. We never would have thought of that before. And all the details within and literally signed prints. The fact that corporations are collecting art in a way that they haven't ever before. The fact that a Burger King in Wisconsin has black and white photographs on the wall. I love this picture David Bowman sent to me. They were on their family vacation and went into Burger King and there's photographs on the wall. And this is a hotel room I was in recently in Los Angeles. There's so much artwork in hotels. I'm in hotels all the time, and I think as artists, you probably wouldn't have thought that the fire alarm might be right next to your images on the wall, but nonetheless, it was a great sale for someone. And this is actually Macy's Herald Square. They have a line of linens that's their hotel collection, and I love the fact that they set up a display with black and white photographs on the wall as if it was, in fact, a hotel, which I just think is fantastic. So we're seeing images in ads for carpet and all kinds of things. Photographs, framed photographs are becoming part of what we see in our world every day. There are many new firms that are in the business of selling your work to, again, all new audiences. So this is a firm called Art and Artisans. They operate out of Houston and out of Austin, Texas. And what caught my eye on their website with this image was the fact that the images that they give you an example of, they installed more than 160 pieces of art. Photography was used throughout, nature scenes, etc. This is a huge sale of artwork. And there are more and more people that are involved in this kind of business. So again, new audiences for you all the time, which of course translates to new agents, new people that will be selling your work beyond what many of us grew up to think would be a gallery environment. Lots of new people, like this picture, which I took at the Armory show. And I was overhearing the dialogue that this gentleman was having with the people that he was walking through the fair with, and had this 3-ring binder. When I got home and I looked at the photograph, I realized that there's this group of binders just behind him. And in fact, what the dealer had done was set up an area where there was a binder per artist, that they had examples of the artwork on the wall, so that the art consultant could grab the binders as they came through the fair. Super smart. But going to the fairs this last weekend, I noticed more and more of those resources. So a third party, essentially somebody that was not employed by the gallery, but an art consultant, could come through and be as best informed as possible as they shepherd their clients through the fair. So more and more of these kinds of situations you'll be coming up to. And of course, Amazon has now entered the market to sell artwork online. So many, many, many things are changing. And I want you all to be really clued into the various markets, whether you come to know a body of work like Eileen Smithson's, who has the fabulous Lens Scratch blog. I hope you're all watching that. I first came to know her artwork on the PhotoEye website, where we see it in the context of other work for sale. We learn about the edition numbers. But in fact, then I saw it not long ago in Real Simple magazine as an illustration. Full page, citing the artist's name, great context, you're paid for that as well. But the same artwork that a dealer might sell for you being made available in an editorial context. One of the ways that I want to help you understand how I came to know about these many different markets is to take you on a little journey down my path of what I learned along the way and who I studied with and why that's applicable really to all of you. So I did my graduate work with an amazing photo historian named Bill Jay, British photo historian. And it was incredible working with Bill and learning so much about the history of photography, who is a working artist and an author as well. I hope you know his work. But when it comes down to it, what I really learned from studying with Bill was, of course, who came before us, having a strong sense of photo history, the creative tools that they used in their practice, and were so diverse that I hope you're all having that experience as well. And most importantly, the ground that they broke in making photography valued as an art form in our world. My next thing I did was every summer I went home to my hometown in Minneapolis and interned for a curator named Ted Hartwell, who was the chief curator at the Minneapolis Institute of the Arts. And walking into a museum was a completely different experience, a completely different language, completely different role that the images had in the context of the museum. So working with Ted, I really came to understand what a body of work was. You know, in the eyes of a curator, a completely different situation. What really is a body of work? How important the editing of that was, how important the consistency in your craft will be in the eyes of someone that's in a curatorial situation. They're collecting for an institution. They're going to need your work to be of that standard. Another thing that I learned that the curator really needs to know from all of you is a very precise set of records that you're keeping about your artwork. Not just about the making of your work, but if you're starting to edition your work, and who might have collected the work before. All of those things are very important to a museum. Had the work been reproduced before? Are you building your bibliography? Yet another language that you'll need to perfect to do business with these people. From there, I got to intern with Janet Borden when I finished my graduate work at Arizona. And Janet had a gallery in the Lower East Side, what was then called the Tool and Die District, that we now call Soho. And that's Janet on your left, Adam Weinberg, the director of the Whitney, and one of the artists she's represented for a long, long time, Tina Barney. And in those days, of course, you can see we're looking at slide sheets and working different materials, but the gallery represented 8 artists, and we had 8 staff members. The ratio was unbelievable. That's not likely to happen today. We really don't have that opportunity. So we were down at an opening at Janet's gallery at 560 Broadway this weekend, opening for John Fall. So the gallery's still in business nearly 40 years later, a much larger roster of artists, as you can imagine, and because many of them, those artists now, sell to the secondary market. The language was completely different again from what we discussed in pictures and picture making and picture record keeping with a museum than with a gallery. The kinds of issues that we dealt with were completely different. But the single most important thing I learned from working with a dealer was how you, the artist, can be involved in that relationship and really understanding the role of a representative in your art making career. It's a very important thing, a completely different relationship you'll have to a dealer than you ever will have with a curator. One of the most important things I watched was how the artists were really in support of that relationship and making it a partnership as best as possible. From there, I had the chance to work with Ansel Adams at the Friends of Photography out in Carmel. And for those of you that aren't quite sure what you may want to do in photography yet, whether you make a living with your camera or you choose to make a living with photographs, that's how I always define what I became interested in, working with artists and working with photographs. Working for an organization like the Friends of Photography in the day gave me a chance to be involved in exhibitions, in education programs. We gave grants to photographers, we taught workshops, all different kinds of things. So for some of you, it may be wonderful to have a chance to work with an organization like an ICP or Center for Photography at Woodstock, Griffin Museum, people that are involved in lots of different things. So of course, Ansel was really an amazing person in our field, moved mountains, helped to establish the Department of Photography at MoMA as a permanent department, but was really a teacher at heart and taught workshops up until the end of his life. In fact, his first books had drawings of home darkrooms because he wanted everyone to be able to have a darkroom at home and everyone to be able to be involved in photography. He was the first person I knew that was licensing his work. This is have you all seen this before, the Ansel Adams coffee can? Which was in 1969, we didn't have a network of galleries yet. And it was a way, kids in school, it was a way for him to generate some revenue. And the Hills Brothers Company had decided that people save these coffee cans, and maybe we should put something special for the holidays. And if you took this wrapper off, in fact, you'd see that this picture went the full length. Down the side, the full title is listed, the copyright symbol, and the name of the artist. So it's a classic example of licensing, but not something you may have thought of with your artwork. And of course, something you'd want to be involved in the decision to say yes or no. But a life in photography at that time was very full. They didn't have a direct path to revenue in galleries. Another thing I respect Ansel for tremendously is that he founded something called the Center for Creative Photography in Tucson, Arizona, as a repository for artists' complete archives. And now there's over 200 archives held there, not just your final prints, but work prints, correspondence, all the things that, as he wanted, will tell you about what it is to make a commitment to a life in the arts. So it was an amazing experience being there. What I learned from Ansel, most of all, was that craft is essential. We know of him, think of him as a great printer. You need to think of yourself in that way too. Whatever experimentation you do, that your craft is absolutely perfect. He was someone who never tired of learning from any part of any industry. He was always a student. And he's someone that was all about community, without any question. Learning from everyone was essential. And there was never a sense that you weren't welcome. Every single person was welcome, completely inclusive. So when Ansel passed away in 1984, when we think about what the field looked like at that time, for an artist, you hoped that you had a one-person exhibition. And you hope that that show would travel, and you hope that there might be a book with it. That was sort of the triangle that we all wanted so badly. And what I kept observing in that was that if you didn't have a dealer that was then taking the work into the market, you might have a group being part of a show that then comes down and goes back in the boxes, under the bed, top shelf, the darkroom. It was considered old work. We hope that that happened, but again, at the end of the schedule, it might be considered old work and move on. Well, when Ansel passed away, I moved to New York City, and I started to work for Magnum, and that is where I learned about licensing. And the premise that Magnum was built upon was, without question, you're owning the rights to your image, so you had the opportunity to sell and resell the licensing rights to your pictures. And we really owe Magnum a huge debt of gratitude, because they're the group that put their feet down and said, you know, at the end of World War II, the war is not going to be something we're all going to be assigned to go cover, but in fact, we signed contracts during that time that Life magazine, et cetera, own the rights to their image. So when you go in the grocery store and you see a magazine that might be Christmas around the world, or Elvis's anniversary and all these things, they own those rights. They're able to repurpose that inventory and that archive again and again and again. So Magnum at the end of World War II said, we've got to start something, we've got to put our feet down and say no. So we own these rights. So we generate revenue again and again and again. And honestly, coming out of an MFA program, it was something I had never heard about before, that we should be owning the rights, and this is why. So I love this sort of historical picture of what picture agencies looked like of the day. I came to Magnum to do books and exhibitions from their archive, and I thought that I'd see black boxes with, Cartier-Bresson and Susan Meiselas, Elliott Erwitt, all that as an archive, when in fact a photo agency archive is a sea of 4-drawer filing cabinets with all the images smashed together under categories like sibling rivalry or south of France. It wasn't filed by artist. It was filed by subject. And the first day I was at Magnum, I remember Bruce Davidson saying to me, Swanee, this is how we've been making a living all these years. And if you look carefully, you'd see some of the kids from East 100th Street, or you'd see images of Susan Meiselas from the countryside in Nicaragua. You'd see these things that would be repurposed. All I could think about were all the artists I knew that had amazing bodies of work in boxes, under the bed, top shelf of the darkroom. The exhibition comes down, it's old work, and why didn't we know about that? So it was an important time to think about how we can generate revenue to keep doing what we want to do. And Magnum continues today as a cooperative that's interested in two things: getting commissions for artists to make new work, and then managing the licensing rights of those artists to continue to generate revenue from that. This is an image taken at a recent major anniversary of Magnum's founding. I hope you'll recognize many of the photographers there. It's the 4 founding archives pictures on the front. And again, we owe Magnum an amazing debt of gratitude. So what I learned from being at Magnum was really for the first time what a full life as an artist, a full life in photography was. This was an amazing cooperative, and again, continues today. I learned that the record keeping, remember we talked about the language with the museums, what they were interested, the language of a gallery, keeping track of editions. Well, the language for licensing that was essential to apply value to your work depended on your authentic captioning and knowing where that work had been licensed before. They had to know things that were very factual, not conceptual at all, but pure fact about the history of how those images are being used, and certainly exactly, precisely where they were made. Very often they'd be licensing things to a high-end ad campaign. You couldn't tell that client that you weren't quite sure what beach that was shot on, what country it was in, what culture they were participating in. They need to know facts. So it was a completely different kind of record keeping than any of the artists that I knew were engaged in. So from there, all of those things at Magnum made it possible to have your work in multiple markets. And again, I came out of a generation of people thinking books, exhibitions, museums, and ideally with Magnum, it showed me that there were so many more opportunities. Things like this is an Eve Arnold image that the New Yorker used for an illustration for fiction. And this was a 40 CD set with None Such that used all Magnum photographs, all black and white photographs. That was a great sale, of course. And then Magnum today has a store. It's quite a different thing than they'd had in the past. But many of the artists at Magnum, of course, we know from their amazing artwork, their amazing limited edition books, their custom artist books. So they have a store that's part of their business model where they sell things as well. Completely different situation. But there's some decisions that you need to make if you're going to offer your work to multiple markets. One is you won't be able to offer your work to the New Yorker for fiction or Knopf Books or any of those if you don't own the copyright to your image. So if some of you have been commissioned to make new work, and in fact part of that commission requires that you have to give the commissioning body, the agency, the client, the ad agency, the corporation, your copyright for those images, it's folded into the contract, then understand that you won't be able to take those images into that licensing environment. Period, end of story. So if you still retain the copyright to your images, you can exploit that work in the language of the copyright law into further markets. The other thing that I think is essential about your understanding about entering your work into licensing opportunities is being able to keyword your images. And how many of you have chosen the title untitled for your work? So if you're, and that's fine, I understand that. I'm not a huge fan of it if you choose to take your work to new markets, because it's very hard for someone to search something if the title is untitled. So I want to show you, I think this is going to be the next slide. I want to show you one of my favorite examples. This is the cover of the T magazine, obviously. Let's keyword this image. How would you describe in words this picture? Anybody? Colorscape? Yeah. Great. What else? Swing, very literal. Playground, excellent. Motion. Sunset. California. Psychedelic era, right? 1969. Anyone else? Abstraction. Okay. So here's what the art directors applied for the cover. Mood swing, which is perfect, right? Excellent example. But that's the kind of thing, that's what photo researchers go through. And if you're hanging out your shingle that your images are available for licensing, they're going to assume that you speak the same language, that they can send you, as the New Yorker's editors will for fiction illustrations, they'll send you a description of a short story, and then you'll go to look in your files and try to find something that speaks to that visually. But that's the task at hand. If you choose to take your work into licensing, you'll need to know that. So there's loads of opportunities, and I think, again, because we're so visually sophisticated in our world today, things that used to be straight illustration now are more than often than not a photograph is being placed there, and that means opportunity for all of you. So one of the things that I did when I came out of Magnum, remember I was sitting there hearing about all these opportunities that we knew nothing about as artists. Why were we not selling our work? I started an agency called Swanstock that managed licensing rights for artists. And so I was the person that was going out with the same work that the artists were selling in galleries and being represented by museums. I was putting in the context of their language, but using things like the caption language that they use on their artwork. I was trying to show this new community of people that were licensing work that in fact the artwork had value. It was from an artist's body of work, it was handcrafted, and tried to put language with it that would show them how they can use artwork in a different way. And this is something that all of you may be doing already, or I hope that you are, but it was really a matter of taking quality artwork and putting it in the context of the language of that industry. I was very proud that Keith Carter let me use this image, the Sleeping Swan, on our cover. And in the day, this catalog was very non-traditional. Olivia Parker here. It was quite a different experience for people to think about using artwork rather than stock photography. And those of you that are interested in having your work used in those contexts, I really want you to think about the value of it and explaining your craft, the context the work is made, to set yourself apart.
What year?
That was late 90s.
Okay.
This image was the highest selling image in our catalog. And I want you to tell me why you think this could sell again and again. What about this picture would lend itself to selling a lot? Caroline? Lots of space for the dreaded copy. That's exactly right. I mean, realistically speaking, it's absolutely true. There was a lot of space for copy, if you choose to allow copy to be put on your images. What else? Where are we?
The beach.
A beach, right. How old is this person? What gender is this person? What nationality? All these things, right? How about the emotion, the gesture? Free, joyful, uplifting overall. So this is actually the photographer's husband on vacation. But as we became better at understanding what would sell, we would go into their outtakes and mine them to be income generating to keep doing your personal work. So this sold for everything. It's just sold and sold and sold. which we were thrilled about, and the artists absolutely produced new work from the revenue that was generated. So it was an interesting experience for us. So in terms of your fine prints, we have lots of new markets as well. And as I described earlier, there are some agencies now and businesses that are involved in taking your work to a different place. They're not galleries. They don't necessarily represent you as a human being, as an art maker, but they would represent your artwork to a client of theirs. So for example, this is a company called Infinity Pics, and their brand, as they define it, their business model, if you will, is a custom service providing fine art photography and decorative photography for your interior design needs. Okay? This is another one called Boston Art, and they're an art consulting firm, and I love to use this image as an example because they really clearly define what the marketplace is. When we think about corporate art, that industry then turns it into another set of language, which is the where. Corporate, healthcare, hospitality, meaning hotels and restaurants and such, public spaces, institutional, residential, and then a lot of public art is what they're doing in Boston. So again, another completely different group of people than a gallery that may be selling your work and placing it in interiors. Their website, by the way, has a call for artists on it. Not everyone does, but many of them do. It's always worth looking all the way through to the contact page. You never know. This is another one called Soho Myriad. Their brand is defining identity through art. And their focus is the hospitality industry. So on their website, when you look at their portfolio, it will be many, many hotels and the artwork that they've placed there. I always like it when the art consultants call their work their portfolio, because again, I think it shows that they're proud of what they do. Art and Artisans, I showed you earlier, another example of their website, and I love looking at how they show what they do. Of course, looking for photography. If they haven't started using photography yet, I don't think you want to teach them how to do that. But if they're engaged in that, if they've been successful in placing photographs, it'll be terrific for you. So we're also seeing more and more online businesses, needless to say. This is, ArtNet was one of the earliest online sites, primarily an education site and information site that now is also much more involved in selling work, artnet.com. And then Artsy, you've probably all been involved in Artsy or been on it in some way or another. I hope that you're all, even if you think this may not be where your artwork is going, I really encourage you to be subscribing to the emails of all these companies and starting to monitor what's happening, because there's no question that the online environment for art sales is going to really be an important part of your world. So it's interesting to me how we see a site like Artsy including a lot of education about the field, having exhibitions that are curated by artists. They're really bringing a lot of different things to the table to capture you. And for example, you can browse their collection by popular categories, browse by price. This may not be exactly where you want to be, but you have to understand that this is a powerful force. Art.com, the top categories, number 2 is photography. When we look at Artsicle, which is a newish one out of Brooklyn, they have a slightly different model. You should go online and understand what they're up to, get on their email. Even if you do 3 months of getting on every single web-based sales site and study the differences between them, I think it'll be a really good thing for you to do. Amazon has come on strong. There's no question about it. The way they work is they have partner galleries. So they're not the dealer. The dealers are still the dealers, the venues. If you click all the way through with an image, it will reveal who the dealer is. And those are relationships that will be maintained through that. So when we click on photography, there's nearly 7,000 images that are online. 20 by 200 is rebranding and coming back. And it's going to be very interesting to watch. How many of you know 20 by 200? Like virtually all of us do. It's a great brand. They really have a fantastic product. They've given a lot of artists a great opportunity to sell a lot of work. And when their editions sell out, it's a lot of money for all of you. Sorry, that one's a little bit out of order, the Amazon. And then recently, the Wall Street Journal had an article about Christie's coming on strong. So many different places that are engaged in selling work in the physical world. We're also now seeing them translate to selling on the online world. So it's going to be an important thing for you to pay attention to. So for some of you, it may be that you will be your own best agent, that you're the best person to talk about your work, to sell your work, and there are more and more opportunities for that. One of my favorite was a show that was held in conjunction with the Architectural Digest Home Show. So part of the fair over on the piers, you have the architects and interior designers coming and looking at carpets and wall coverings and all different kinds of things related to the home. And one wing of the fair was all artists who had their own individual booths. So in fact, you may be the person that rents the booth, that is physically staffing it, as Mark McKinnon did with his booth here, which I always think he has a fantastic booth. I see him at a lot of these kinds of fairs. Very smart presentation. Each print is sleeved. It's a box that drops down. He can show a lot of work quickly without damaging it. There's extra prints on the wall, on the floor, so that when the things on the wall sell, he can move right into that. So he's his own best agent, moves the work a lot. This is another artist at the fair, and I want you to see that, again, it's your gallery. There's information on the wall. There's takeaways for you to whomever walks through the booth. This is another one, Gene Mealy from New York. This was his first fair at the time. Very active booth. A lot of business was done. A lot of new relationships built that time. For this artist, something was sold, so off the wall, put something else back up. You, of course, want everything to sell. And again, more and more of these kinds of opportunities are coming your way as well. This is a division of Art Expo, which has fairs all over the country where you, the artist, could decide that you're going to test the waters and see how you do in that environment. I think for the fairs, it's important to think about what other businesses they're held in conjunction with. I can tell you that, for example, the fair that was with the Architectural Digest Home Show, those artists really had a chance to talk to a lot of interior designers and architects that were designing space for art from the ground up, as they call it. One of the fairs I've been watching carefully is the Dwell on Design Fair. Dwell magazine has exploded to have everything from a TV channel to major events in different cities. And I think it won't be long before we see them opening up something like this for artists as well, because they're all about the home. It makes good sense. So let's jump back to licensing. So we talked about different things with prints, images being licensed, print sales traditionally, print sales by corporate collections, print sales by companies that take your work to corporate collections, and then also what would happen if you're your own dealer. And with regard to licensing, how many of you have a sense of how to price images for licensing? It's something that you probably, unless someone has called and offered that to you, it's not something that we as artists typically learn. And so I want to help you understand how that works. And in a very broad, general way. There's no textbook for this. I think any of us that are in business will tell you the first rule of business is that every single negotiation is unique, no matter what the situation. There are guidelines. You ultimately will know the value of your work, but everything is a negotiation, you'll hear again and again. So on this pyramid, the lowest dollar is generally in return for uses on the web. Unless you're on the cover of someone's website, a graphic designer has retained your work as the cover, you're not going to have anything that's kind of quantifiable about how many people will see it. So it tends to be a lesser fee. Next up, education, textbooks. Beyond that, we get into the editorial market. Beyond that, the graphic design and the corporate market tend to pay higher rates. There's fewer usages, as you can see in the pyramid. And then the tip of the iceberg has always been and will continue to be the advertising market. They pay the most money because they want to lock that picture up. They want to make sure you're not selling it to somebody else. They want to own that image, and attaching it to their brand is important to them, and they will pay for that. So for example, I love this Lincoln campaign. Did you all see this campaign? It ran for a couple of months. It was the rebranding of the Lincoln car campaign. So when you're paying top dollar in an advertising environment, believe me, they can use the images in a single page. They can use them in a double page. You'll strike a deal that will be all encompassing with a brand acquisition of this scale that they can really do quite a bit with it. It'll probably be a flat fee based on the exposure that your images are going to get in a very big way. And this campaign continued to grow and evolve. Some of them were chefs. They had different personalities, different career types that they covered. but very high exposure for these portraits. So if we do the same exercise with prints and the value of your prints when you sell individual prints, let's do the same kind of pyramid for you. The lowest prices tend to be from posters that you either make yourself or you would sell. Even Michael Kenna has posters in posters.com and many, many poster venues. He tends to choose to put his work into the poster market after it's had its life in the gallery, but feels very strongly that it's a market of people that he probably wouldn't ever reach through his $100 books or his $1,200 prints, and he loves that. So it tends to be the lower end of the scale. Then we sell to friends and family, one of the hardest markets because it's always hard to ask your friends for money, especially to ask family for money. But that's where some of you will begin to sell your work, I hope. Some of you may choose to do some of the art fairs that we showed here, or something we can just blanket as the weekend art fairs. And that, again, is where you're probably the salesperson. You're handling that yourself. You're setting the prices. You're packing the car. You're doing all that yourself. The next level where prices tend to go up is when there's a third party that comes in. Someone else is involved in selling. And what I'm seeing is the decor market coming on strong. Some of the firms that we've talked about tonight, selling your work directly to architects, interior designers, corporations, etc. That next level is there. And then, of course, the tip of the iceberg that you all want is you want to have a gallery that will take your work then to museums, to important private corporations, collections, etc. So just a simple guidelines to help you with that. Now, some of the decisions that you've got to make before you enter those two markets, whether you're selling the reproduction rights to your image or you're selling the actual print of your image. There's two different worlds you need to think about. If we're talking about fine prints, the big decision you have to make is, are you going to edition the prints or not? Because anyone that approaches you about a price, they're going to want to know if it's a limited edition or not. And that's where you're going to have to make those decisions. Is it an open or closed edition? So for example, this is an image by Hank Willis Thomas. This was at the Armory Fair. And this is his caption on the wall. I think when I first knew Hank, his prints were maybe an edition of 5, possibly 8, but now they're 3. So he and his dealer have made a distinct decision that those prints are going to be very limited. And that means to me that the buyers of that gallery, or that network of galleries as the case may be, are a group of collectors for whom the exclusivity of owning something that there's not many of is primary for them in their collecting strategy. Okay? So it also is continuing now into the limited edition book world. And this was Kelly Connell's first book, Double Life, and the publisher, in fact, at the New York Art Book Fair, showing the examples of the prints that you could choose to buy that were the limited edition of the book. But more and more we're seeing books having a limited edition as well for that same type of exclusivity that they can achieve there. Let's switch back to someone who buys the rights to reproduce your images. Not an object, but the rights to reproduce your images. You have another big decision to make whether you're going to enter that world or not. And it relates to if you're going to sell your work as what we call rights managed or royalty free. How many of you are familiar with those terms, rights managed and royalty free? That's great that so many of you know of that. It really depends on how much you know about the work, where it's been used, and it'll absolutely affect the pricing. So what rights managed means is that you know exactly where that picture's been used before. So for example, if I walk into a Barnes & Noble, for example, and there's an image that's used on a fiction cover, and then it's also on a biography in the other side of the store, I know somebody's in trouble. Somebody wasn't paying attention. Somebody licensed that image for 2 publications at the same season, the same world that it's out there. So if I'm an ad agency and I want to acquire the rights to your image, I need to know, for example, if my client is American Airlines, that that image or any similar images you made that same time are not on Delta or Southwest or JetBlue. Because as you can imagine, with high stakes advertising, they absolutely need to know that they're not going to have their image in any way diluted by that association being used in a competitive environment. So all of you have to decide, am I going to be able to keep my records that tight so that I could value my licenses that high? That's really what it comes down to. Are you going to be rights managed or royalty free? The opposite end of the spectrum, royalty free, meaning you don't provide them with any history, and consequently the price is way lower. They're not really buying that kind of cautionary exclusivity in any way. So for example, on that, this is an image by Tom Burrell that was featured in the Swanstock catalog, and it was later, Swanstock became part of a bigger agency. The ad buyers, or art buyers or art producers, you may have heard that language, remembered this image, wanted to use it in a campaign, had to get it from Tom directly at that point. They also, and they said, fine, they'll get it from Tom. They also, or I'm sorry, from Getty, as the case may be. In this case, this was an artist. They also remembered this piece, and they wanted this image by Stuart Clipper to be in the same campaign. You can see it's got the same language. One's vertical, single page, one's a double page. So in this case, the ad agency acquired the image from the Getty, and the rights package that they wanted, and this would be what you would ask anyone that wants to license your work. You want to know exactly what they want it for and for how long. So they said to the agency that they wanted to use it for this IBM campaign for North America, Europe, in other words, not worldwide, North America, Europe, 1 year, unlimited for print, plus 6 billboards. That's kind of the language of some of these very high-end buys. They piece together geography and term, 1 year, unlimited. And they said to the agency that they had a budget of $10,000, and the agencies then said what? If you're being represented by an agency and they get told what the budget is, what do you want them to do?
Spend $10,000.
You want them to, well, maybe it'd be great if they could get 20 out of them. But in this case, the agency said, that's fine, we'll take it. What do you get as the artist?
5.
Maybe 4, right. So your work is then handled by an agency. They're going to take their cut. Anybody that's involved is going to take a cut. This one, they negotiated directly with the artist. And one of the things that the artist did was ask to see a layout, right? So this is how the campaign came to him, fully laid out. What does that tell you? They're probably kind of far along in liking your picture if they've maybe laid it all the way out and they send that to you, right? They're kind of, in fact, they may have already sold their client on it. In other words, they may really have to buy that picture from you. So you're kind of in a powerful position at this point. So I remember talking to Stuart about this, and they called and they said, we have $15,000. What does that tell you? It's a group of clients that are a little more sympathetic to artists, right? They offered him more right off the bat, knowing he'd get all of it. So Stuart called me all excited. Oh my God, they're going to give me $15,000. I said, you have to say no. It's like, I can't say no. That's more than the grant I got to go to Antarctica to make the pictures. I said, get a layout. Make him show you a layout. So he got the layout. I'm like, oh my God, you know, they're going to buy this picture from me no matter what. So anyway, he, held his breath and continued to negotiate and held his ground, did his homework, looked online, found that this campaign was everywhere. That probably means that they want to wrap it up. It's been successful. They're going to buy the last of the pictures and be done with it. $31,500. And so he gave money back to the National Science Foundation that helped him to be there, and for all the right reasons. All those things can happen. So you want to know a lot of things, but remember, if you don't know what you're selling, if he hadn't made that picture, he knew exactly where it was, he knew when it was, he knew the name of the boat in the background, he knew everything about it. It was added value without any question. Royalty free, on the other hand, you don't know very much, you throw it in the bin. Let's say you grew up in Hawaii, you have tens of thousands of pictures of Hawaii, you can't resist shooting when you're home visiting your family, you got all these pictures that has nothing to do with your body of work. You might push all that Hawaii work off on a royalty-free agency, and they might sell them for $5 or even $1 or whatever, and you might gradually see some money from it. But that's because you don't want to keyword all of them, you don't want to guarantee which beach, you want to go through that, just throw it into royalty-free. So royalty-free, you're without a history of it. It might be a picture like this, right? Do we think this is someone that uses Earthlink? Not necessarily. Could they care less if it was on an AT&T ad? Probably not. So that just falls into this pool of pictures that are unremarkable, for which there's not a lot of money to generate, okay? So I want to teach you a little bit more about a few things in print, because it's very often the first licenses that some of you will have the opportunity to have. With magazines, they generally have a fixed rate per page. So it's really driven by the real estate. A cover, of course, being the most valuable. The middle, back of the magazine, 1/8 of a page, not as much value. So understanding that those placements have to do with the geography and the real estate is one thing. And they typically have a fixed rate. You may not be able to negotiate much unless you have something extraordinary that they really want. So we are Bark subscribers in my home, one of my favorite magazines. The only magazine that did a story on the dogs of Cartier-Bresson when Cartier-Bresson passed away. And Amanda Jones is someone who shoots for them a lot, has an incredible archive of dog photographs. So if I were negotiating this or this, I would argue that even though there's 4 images, it might, if you took out a ruler, it's like maybe 1/3 of a page. This has full page impact to me. Those pictures drive what we see in that page. So I want you to understand that the value of your pictures may be more if you negotiate for it. This is an image from the amazing book that Rebecca Norris Webb did called My Dakota. I hope all of you have seen that amazing book. It was published by Radius Books last year. And some of you will love to have your work reproduced in a magazine that makes sense again. This is Orion. No ads in Orion magazine. No Ford truck in the middle of your portfolio. Just an incredible place to be. A smaller circulation, they're not going to have a bigger budget, but the placement could be perfect for you. Real Simple, again, I think does an amazing job. This is an early, as you can see, 8x10 contact print by Olivia Parker. And this is the back page of Audubon magazine, which also does an amazing job. This is an image by Simon Johann, and I saw this same image on the wall at an art fair not long afterwards. The exact same image, completely different context. This is what can happen today for you. And then there's, again, the New Yorker. If you have the opportunity, as Zoe Strauss did, to have your work featured in the up and coming, I know a lot of artists have told me their prints have sold out of edition from being in the New Yorker. And it also can happen, as Kate Joyce shared with me, who made this picture, that not only do people go on our website and buy the image that's featured, but they very often will buy another image as well, or 2 off the website on the same visit. So it's very powerful context. When you think about who's reading the New Yorker, it's a demographic, if you will, of people that are typically educated, cultured, buying art. So if you're up to licensing your images, you know the history of the pictures, it may be that the group of photo editors at the New Yorker who are responsible for fiction would be a great place for you to start and make your work available to them. I also love seeing people like Eleanor Carucci, one of your faculty members here, reaching out and having commercial commissions that make sense given the depth of her personal work. It's a natural that this would happen. That I see Eleanor's work in commercial context all the time. And then this was something else that I love. This is Ben Lowy, who we think of for very different work than this. And we even think of Ben Lowy as very different work for this. But he's a working photographer, has diverse skill set, can get out there and do many different kinds of things for a client. So that's the world that will come for you soon, those of you that are finishing up. So again, I think with regard to one of my sort of notes of caution, having been an agent for licensing rights for many, many years, I want you all to recognize that you want to be really clear in your contracts that if you are given a page, whether it's fiction or you're commissioned to shoot new work, that you know exactly where those pictures will run. Because very often now a magazine will run an ad with an image that you shot in it when in fact you should be getting paid for advertising at that point. So be really, really clear and understand that. I know it's a lot to think about when you're just getting started, but understand that there's a history of magazines owning the rights, like Condé Nast, who now can produce coffee table books and exhibitions of the images that they own the reproduction rights for. The New Yorker, they license the pictures that they use on the cover again and again. This was a piece that I saw from Savier where they've put together a book of work as well as a digital version of images you may have shot thinking it was going to be in print, so be careful to understand what the multiple markets are that they may be intending. Book jackets are one of my very favorite places to see images. How many of you can like imagine, you can envision images on book covers that you love? They become kind of like the brand of the book, the icons for the book. So it's a wonderful placement. It's a book that's successful will have your image on it for a long, long time. Again, I think it's important to keep negotiating those usages from hardcover to softcover to multiple language, but it's a wonderful thing. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about how that can happen. And this is a cover of a book that was a first fiction by Eric Shaw Quinn. And we as agents had been licensing our work to the book jacket market all along. So we got a phone call looking for an image for this book. You, if you'd been marketing to those art directors, would get that same phone call. But in this case, they said it's a story about a young man in his 30s who overnight becomes custodian of his nephew when his sister and her husband are killed in a car accident. So we then go to our files, you go to your files, right? Remember our keyword exercise in the beginning? So we go fishing for a picture that works. Why did this sell? Why did this picture work? Anybody? You can't identify with the faces, so it's a little bit anonymous, right? And it looks sort of age appropriate, don't you think? Yep, young man in his 30s, young person. What else helps you to sell this picture?
The man looks surprised at the child's affection.
Yeah, the man's looking surprised. I think the gesture of the hands on the waist, the gesture of the young person holding onto the pant leg, right? What else? What about the background? For me, like the infinity of the sea really strikes home about the uncertainty of the future. So this again was the husband of the photographer and her son on vacation. But it was the perfect solution visually. Wouldn't you agree? The other thing I loved about this is that the art director did not crop her image square. Robin Stoutenberg, with this body of work, was holding her paper under the enlarger, slightly bowing it, and they didn't come in and make it a different picture. So if that's important to you when you start to put your work out there to art directors for licensing, you want to make sure that you declare that your work is final as presented and that there's no cropping, no flopping, no tinting, as we often said. This is Anard McDonald's image that wraps around the cover. You can see that this now is on the spine. That's additional real estate. You should be paid more, right? What happens when books are no longer flat on the front tables where they have that valuable real estate in the front of the store and they're brand new? They go in the back in stacks. So more and more often now we're seeing the spine being used in a distinctive way so that you'll remember that book. So you should be paid more for that. And this obviously is a full bleed across the front and the back. That's double the real estate. You should definitely start your negotiations at double. So cover art is based on two things. The pricing is based on how big your image is to the overall object, right? And how many people are going to see it, or the exposure of your image. So if it's a book that's on the Oprah Book Club, they're going to print some copies, right? And that's going to have a bigger budget than a small book of poetry. So you ask all these sorts of questions about what the press run's going to be, and you want to see a layout. You always want to see a layout to make that happen. But the most important driving force really is how many they're going to print. That's the big thing. So let's talk a bit about if this is acceptable to you to have an image be used and might be altered. So some of your work, your personal work, will be picked up because we have a savvy group of art directors and designers and photo researchers out there looking for great work. So this will happen. So people like Jane Yeomans have done a really wonderful job of making work that the art directors and designers, great talented designers, have used in their covers. And These are just two of the examples on Jane's website that I encourage you to have a look at. Mark Yank is another artist, a very talented artist whose work has been picked up for many, many fiction covers. And I've got a couple of examples here. And then one of the things I love about Mark's work is that this same work is also seen and widely collected at Clamp Art. I love that Brian Clamp, in his exhibition website, under About the Gallery, he shows the work of Mark's. Many of those images I remember from book jackets as well. So there's a lot of interchange. A lot of people say, well, what happens if I allow someone to use my image on a book cover? Is it going to be a problem for collectors? And I think you would agree that it has not been a problem for collectors. The work has sold very widely. So those are decisions that, of course, you want to have with your dealers if you have one. But none of the artists that I have worked with over time have had a challenge with that being a problem to collecting, which, of course, is their core business. They really want to be selling prints. So Anna Tomczak, this is one of her original pieces, and this is what the art director wanted to do. So what do you think? Would you allow this to happen? This is your original, and this is what the art director wanted to do. What questions might you ask if this call came to you and this layout came to you? How much? Exactly. Perfect. That's the first thing. How much? Because for me, if what your core business is making work, this can make a difference for you as an artist. I think all of you want to make a decision based on how they're going to use it, but certainly how much is a big factor in that. So Anna decided to do this. Some of you may or may not agree, but she ended up doing another 7 books with this art director. They had a great time working together, and her personal work was produced at the 20 by 24 studio here in Manhattan, very expensive studio rentals, and it helped her to produce a body of work. It really, and that's what we were all about, was trying to help a secondary income come to all of you to keep making work. So here's another example. This is an image by Robert Dawson. I remember when the phone call came to us, the keyword they were looking for was oxymoron. And we thought, oh my God, this is so perfect. The gate is perfect. So what happens but they open the gate. They colorize it, they make it a panorama, they've changed it completely. So what do you ask in this case? Of course, how much? But I have to tell you, for me, there were other questions that I needed to know, because this image was really becoming a signature image for a body of photographers called Water in the West, and it had been collected by museums quite a bit of late at this time, and I wanted to be more protective of that image in the marketplace. I was concerned about it. So I wanted to know how long they wanted to license the image. Was this going to be a 5-year agreement or 6 months? I wanted to know, was it simply going to be in the network communications industry, or did they want to have billboards in Times Square? I had no idea. But to me, that was important. For all of you as artists, it may well be important to understand those things as well. Not just the price, but really what is the exposure to the image. So in this case, they did want to use it for a very short amount of time. They did want to use it in a very narrow industry. So we charged them a boatload of money, and Robert was able to finish the body of work and have his book come out exactly as he wished. So that, to me, was a win-win. It was barely out there in the market, and it really continued the work. So all of you will decide what's important. I think, for me, my hope is that you'll think about a lot of these issues before those phone calls come, before you add a lot of book jacket designers to the mailing list or advertising agencies, and before you make some of those choices. It may be the case as well that some of your personal work will inspire someone to call and ask you to shoot new work in the style of your personal work, which you may or may not wish to do. One of my favorite examples is a photographer named Sean Perry, who spoke here recently, this spring, lectured. Fantastic teacher and amazing artist. So this is an image he shot for himself from his series called Monolith, amazing work of New York. And this is what the New York Times commissioned him to shoot in his style. And again, some of you may or may not wish to do that. Some of you may not want to accept that challenge and have a deadline and have a budget and have an art director concerned about what the outcome will be before you've even made it. It's a different experience, And for some of you, it may be exciting, and others you may not wish to go there. But those of you that do may love it. Allison Smith is a photographer out of Dallas who makes little zines for her promo pieces, and she had the Fort Worth Opera on her website for a number of years, or on her promotional mailing list for a number of years. And so, lo and behold, the Fort Worth Opera gave her a commission to create a zine specifically about their anniversary season. So again, for her, it was just awesome to be able to make a piece specific to a client and have a lot of fun with it. Chip Farrelly is an artist that lives here in New York State, and he went to PhotoFest, did his homework about the reviewers at PhotoFest, saw that there was a corporate art consultant on the roster named Julie Kinzelman. And he looked up then her roster, just as you might do of a gallery and what their roster of artists is, or a curator and what the exhibitions they've done. Well, in this case, a corporate art consultant, he wanted to know what her client base was. Houston, Texas, lots of oil and gas, a lot of energy clients. So he brought a specific edit just for her that he wasn't showing to the gallery and museums that would be conducive to selling to that audience. And in fact, he got the largest commission he'd ever had. And they bought 3 full sets of prints of the work, as well as this amazing global commission. So lots of different things can happen based on your personal style. Another thing I want you to think about before you hang out your shingle and decide that that's acceptable. The clue with this one really was looking hard at who that person was and who their roster was. And if you'll be able to see if you were reading this, and I hope you'll go to Kinzelman Fine Art and look hard at it. Julie got her master's degree in photography at RIT and worked at the George Eastman House. So she's like the hybrid corporate art curator you all want to know. Someone who's absolutely bringing photography to their clients without any question. So it's rare to find someone that comes from our background in that position, but I would say that's a goal that you all want to have. Ultimately, again, it's really you that will decide, I hope. There are lots of guides on pricing. You'll certainly ask your friends about pricing, but ultimately, I want you to be the person that decides the value of your work in the long run. I think when you're starting to put your work out there, one of the most important things you can do is add a sense of value on first impression. So I'm always happy when a website has the work on the wall, even if you're an advertising shooter or editorial shooter or corporate, that you in fact, you value your work and it is valued in the market to be on the wall. It's a great, strong presence that you should have right off the bat. So I think whenever I go on a website that has work on the wall or artist books on the table presented in this way, as you enter into that website, then you're carrying that sense of value all the way through. You've already raised the bar on what we're seeing. Images like this give us a sense of scale, but also show the value of that work in a classic collector's box. Things like this, where Irene Owsley added an image of herself overseeing the print production. She wanted people to know that she's the printer. For a lot of collectors, that has value. They want an image that has the hand of the artist, if you will, on that print. So all of these images are really not showing anything but what you would be buying, how it's made, and how it's on the wall. So then on Sean's website again, this is the only time I've ever seen an image like this. What do you see when you see this picture? Auction. What does that mean? Value. Value. White gloves, the whole auction environment. But it tells me something else. When I see this picture, I also feel like we're learning a little bit about the artist. We're learning that the artist has a cause, whatever the case may be, that they believe in, and that they've gifted their work to help that. And it's hard to depict that. It's hard to envision that. So think about that in your own marketing, how you can bring your personality to the brand, as it were. It's not a simple thing to do. In terms of your self-promotion, when you start to send your work out to multiple markets, my favorite example of doing your homework, my town is not spelled that way. I did not ask for it. I'm not a curator, don't have a gallery. Are we talking about what came in that envelope? No, because what's memorable to me is that they didn't do their homework. That's what I'm remembering. So when you create a print piece, make sure that It's of a size that can fit in file cabinets. It might be something that you'd want on bulletin boards. Make sure that your website's on the front if it's a promo card, because it's unlikely that they'll take the 12 postcards off of it to find the website if it is buried. Be thoughtful about what people are getting. I love this simple trifold that Vicki Topaz did. Gives a sense of the work, clean design, easy to read. If you're producing work in a series, I love getting a booklet like this or a pamphlet like this. Remember to put your images, your name on the back of each image in case they're separated, or you may decide to do an accordion fold so all the work stays together. But all those things help us to know you. Lauren Henkin is somebody who makes artist books as well as prints, so I love that her promos are like small books. They're hand-bound. It reminds us of that. This is an example of a piece that was a follow-up for a curator where they wanted to see more work, a simple packet, clean design, simple cover letter saying where they met them, what's included in the packet, and then on the right, when all the images come out, the captions are in the language of art making. It's going to a curator. They wanted to know what the materials were. Was it a project? Was there a series? Is it a limited edition or not? Things that I referenced earlier in the work about talking about the marketplace. So for that audience, those are the things that they want to know. One of my favorites, again, just a simple print, handwritten note. I absolutely am brought right back to meeting them at the review event. The same with Victoria Ryan at Photonola. If you choose to do work in multiple markets, you'll have a challenge to decide if your branding is going to be similar or you're going to be a completely different person. And what Susan K. Grant did with hers, with her Night Journey series, the work is silhouetted, and a number of people became interested and asked her gallery if she could be commissioned to make portraits in the style of her personal work. So the branding is very similar. The palette is slightly different. The language is slightly different in each one, but you feel like it's the same person. It's not two different people. And I think that was a great way to resolve that. If you're communicating by email, I want to remind you that they're ultimately going to go to the website. You want them to go to the website. That's where you ultimately want to be driven. So be mindful when these emails go out that the website looks consistent at the time that you're sending things out. I will also tell you that if you're using email as the primary form of introduction, which personally I don't recommend, the subject line becomes the single most important thing in your communication. And if you think that an editor at the New Yorker is going to respond to an email that just says, introduction to my work in the subject line, unlikely in the 500 images or 500 emails they're getting that day that they're going to open that. So it's really important to think that way. Personally, we get so few pieces in print anymore in our mailbox, and the inbox, for me, email is just about broken. It's just about on overload. It just about doesn't work anymore. So I love opening the mailbox and having a few pieces, having a chance to really look carefully at them, feel the craft, understand the design sensibilities they brought to that, and really be able to get to know the person, then go to the website. So no matter how you decide to market, I think, again, you've got to really think about who you're talking to in your pieces. Are you talking to galleries, curators, art directors and designers, corporate art consultants, photo editors, photo researchers? Who are you speaking to? And then think about where they are, where they gather. Which places do you need to be and which do you not need to be? Some curators will tell you they'd much prefer print. Other young photo editors will tell you they really only want email. So you need to know who it is and what they prefer. I also think it's really awesome if you have a chance at a portfolio review to ask somebody when you're closing that meeting, how would you prefer, well, number one, would you like me to keep in touch? And if so, what's your preferred path? Is it print? Is it email? Is it the telephone? Who knows? So one of my favorite examples is Allison Smith, who I showed you earlier that she'd done the work with her zines. Allison is someone for whom she has a very diverse career, from editorial to corporate to private portraiture to gallery representation and editions that are sold out, editorial commissions, all different kinds of things. Her website looks like this, and I'll walk you through some of the sections. It's AllisonVSmith.com. So she has her projects lead, and then the observations, in-depth in all these categories. Extra credit shows things in print, so they're tear sheets of recent commissions. Installed is her work on the wall. Then her zines come after, showing the different environments for the work and giving scale, which I think is really important. Backstage is a lot of fun pictures about how she got how she spent the day with Erykah Badu and all the different people that were helping her on shoots, a bio, and then her blog's been running for years. It's lots of fun. People have been following it forever. And she'll often reference her recent commissions on the blog and talk about what had been happening. Then you can come to a section on her site called Archive, which is essentially the library of all the work. Oftentimes, someone that's doing an editorial shoot or someone wants to hire her to shoot a music performer will go and look at all the other shoots. She calls that her archive. For her, the stock library is not the right language. It's really archive, because many of the images do end up in the wall in the collecting environment. You'll think about what language is right for you. And then this is one of my favorite New Yorker cartoons, just sitting here waiting for Facebook to go away. So Allison's last Facebook post was in February of 2009. And for her, it just wasn't working, even back then. She switched to LinkedIn. It's been much more successful for her. I'm hearing more and more about people actually getting jobs from LinkedIn. I'm hearing more and more about people finding photographers on Twitter, and the most of all, Instagram. Allison's the first person I knew that called me, and she sent an email, forgive me. It said, "My first Insta sale," was her subject line. And she had posted an image that morning that she shot in Dallas, and D Magazine emailed her that afternoon and asked if they could license it, and they used it in the upcoming thing, and that was her first Insta sale. So let's see, Kathy Ryan was on the panel at the AIAP conference last fall and talked about hiring 3 photographers that she found on Instagram. Oh, fantastic. So that's fantastic that you had Kathy here. Awesome for all of you. So again, think about where your audience is. That's where you need to be. Do you need to be everywhere? No. You need to be where your audience is that you're trying to reach. So if you grant the authority to license your images, I want to underscore that if you're not saying yes or no, if you're not in charge of these decisions and you allow someone else to make those decisions for you, I can't underscore how important it is that they really understand what's important to you. So when I worked for Magnum in the 80s, Philip Jones Griffiths was a staunch anti-war person. And even if Sikorsky offered him $100,000 for a corporate report, he would say no, because his values were so strong, he didn't want his images anywhere near it. All of you need to think about what's important, and if someone else, again, is granting the yes or no answers for you, that you really understand how they will make those decisions, hopefully based on how you coach them on that. But it is a huge thing. Those are just a few of the examples. What we have now with technology is the challenge of people taking your images and putting them in a context you might not approve of without asking. So this is an image that a photographer in Arizona at the time, Bob Carey, made and licensed for Lexus. And then literally in his studio, his assistant was eating out of this Cheez-Its box, and they noticed his picture on it. Not once, but twice. And so if you look carefully, they've stolen it once, and then they hired a photographer to shoot it a second time. So what do you do when this happens? Sue them, says Dan Nelken. After you have it copyrighted. So in this case, they were able to write a letter to the marketing department of this mega company, because of course you can go online and find out who the agency of record is for this division of this massive empire. And it's a much better situation when you're able to say to them, it has come to my attention that there is a product in the marketplace that features an image that we did not authorize. I have attached my registration numbers from the US Copyright Office to prove that this is our image, and please call me right away. So I want you all to be professional in your business dealings. I want you all to be registering your images with the Copyright Office so that if you ever have to go to court to defend your copyright from whatever type of violation, that to the court you are a professional, that you have followed professional standards, and it's an important thing to have happen because you don't want to deal with it. I want you to learn to read contracts. This is a first pass on a contract for a friend of ours that this book is actually in second printing, but I read contracts from the middle and then the phrase and then the full sentence and then the whole paragraph, because oftentimes it can be changed as you read through it. So when Bill Jay fell ill, remember at the beginning of my lecture, my photo history teacher, he fell ill in the summer of 2000, and I got a call asking if I could come up and teach graduate seminar while he was going to be out on leave. And I said, sure, and I'm very loyal to my alma mater, and I went up every Wednesday night and taught class in the same classroom I taught in grad school. And on the wall in the darkroom, as many of the hallways are in academic programs, there's the travel abroad summer programs that you tear off the sheet. Well, this was exactly that kind of thing with the big heavy staples on the wall in the darkroom. And it was for a little company called Jones Soda. Right? You all know what Jones Soda is? The photographs on the bottles. So this is what it said. I, blank, hereby authorize Urban Juice and Soda Company to use my photographs in any manner it so chooses. This includes Jones Soda labels, carrier packs, magazine advertisements, corporate brochures, and any other promotional material it wishes. By signing this form, I agree that Urban Juice and Soda Company will credit my photos with my name wherever I use the photographs. Currently, what does that mean? Nothing. Currently, the credit is provided in the following format, et cetera, is printed vertically, uppercase letters, et cetera. The last line in that paragraph? This format may change. So that wipes that whole thing out. Okay, fast forward to today. Jones Soda is now a giant company. Like everything else, it's become a membership program so that they can capture your email and communicate with you. And this is really what it looks like today. And so that little one-page, three-paragraph contract is now many, 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 many pages. And the world has changed. And I want to read to you, let's see, my favorite line. Okay. By uploading materials to any forum or submitting any materials to us. Submitting, not even being accepted, right? But submitting. I see this in contracts all the time now. Submitting, you automatically grant or warrant that the owner of such rights has expressly granted Jones a perpetual, what does that mean? Forever. A perpetual, royalty-free, irrevocable, non-exclusive right to license to use, reproduce, modify, adapt, publish, translate, create derivative works from, and distribute such materials or incorporate such materials into any form, medium, or technology now known or later to be developed throughout the universe. Throughout the universe. So if you don't know what a derivative work is, this is an ad campaign that Getty had years and years ago that merged, I don't know, 22 pictures or something together into what is called a derivative work. So I really want you to learn to read contracts. I want you to be careful about how you share everything and be involved in things that are exciting and dynamic and that use your work in context. And some of my favorite things I've seen lately, this is an ad for Benjamin Moore paint. And I look at this and I go, who is the art director here? I want them on my mailing list. Right? Doesn't matter if they're still at Benjamin Moore, they're using pictures in a really interesting way. Know what this is? Sugimoto on the U2 cover. A licensing exchange. Not for cash, they decided to trade usage. But it's a classic case where you'd get permission. They knew how the usage would be. The first thing Sugimoto said when Bono called was, I don't allow any copy on the pictures. And they said, fine, we'll put it on some wrapper. But those were the conditions. It's the same situation that hopefully some of you will go through. One of my favorite ad campaigns that's always used amazing images is Hive Modern. If any of you subscribe to Dwell or any of the home magazines, they always have exquisite photographs of nature that echo the architecture of the objects that they design and build. Really beautiful, don't you think? So I want you to be involved with people who use pictures in an interesting way. This is something that, again, is licensing. Susan Kay's images from Night Journey, and there, along with Maggie Taylor and Jerry Yulesman, on objects for sale, on watches. Again, licensing, a licensing deal. So it's a great time to be really mindful of how, as I call them, tried and true markets are changing. This is an ad for the Wall Street Journal. Who would have thought that? Completely thinking about a different demographic. This is a Ford truck ad where the device is right in the car, in the ad campaign itself. And that's new to us in advertising. This is an ad for Chevy that to me looks like a website, doesn't it? Like the montage of many websites. So images are being used so differently, and then text as well. And I find so few photographers really being mindful of how their text is used with images. So I'm always collecting different ways that we're seeing typography put into print and put into ad campaigns online as well. My favorite book for you to know about is Thinking with Type. Has a great website as well. And I'm really excited that Ellen Lupton's next book, which will be out this fall, is going to be Type on Screen. So again, your marketing materials need to be well done, and that type and images is important. So just to kind of stop and look back for a second, I want to remind you that a lot of photographers over our history worked commercially, had personal work as well. Robert Sobiesek was a fantastic curator that we lost several years ago. One of my favorite projects he did was called The Art of Persuasion. And he showed the photographers we knew for their personal work and how they work commercially. This is a Lewis Hine campaign that he did for the Pennsylvania Railroad in, I think, 1917. What we know about it is that he insisted on using real railroad conductors, which feels like the Lewis Hine that we want to know. Edward Steichen on the top, Paul Outerbridge, the eyed collar, probably his best known image was in fact a commercial job. And this was a campaign that Steichen did on the homeless during the Depression. It was a pro bono campaign for an advertising agency. Ruth Bernard's work for Bullocks in the 1950s. Robert Mapplethorpe for Nike on top. Dominique Easterman on the bottom for Maud for His Own Shoes. This is Dwayne Michaels' piece that he did for Neiman Marcus. I mean, these are all photographers that you probably know their personal work of, but have been finding the great collaborations to make a living from as well. The image on the top is by Stephen Wilkes. Again, for Nike, great ad campaigns that they consistently run. And Kazuyoshi Miyoshi on the bottom for an advertising agency. And then, of course, Irving Penn, who was shooting commercially right up to his last days. And always found that interesting balance between a quest for new personal work at all time and the best way that he could interpret products for clients as well. So today, what does a career look like for all of you? One of my favorite examples is a photographer named Jamie Stillings, who's a successful commercial photographer, has always had his personal work seen broadly, well acquired by museums and galleries. And if you look at the language on his website, jamiestillings.com, you'll see that it starts with his projects, portraits. What are we shooting today? No matter what, they're always going to be portrait jobs. Concepts, environments, info, login, contact, copyright, and licensing. So he's letting people know right on his navigation, upper level navigation, that his work is available for licensing. And then fine art prints is there as well. But then we see that he's also got registered domain names for all of his projects. So if we click on the Bridget Hoover Dam, which most of you know this project, the first thing that we see is the framed print. The placement of the important elements has changed. Fine art prints is now the second thing below the artist statement. Then we get about the exhibition. So we immediately know there's an exhibition of that work. Copyright and licensing, of course, enters into his entire career. Bio, CV, the multimedia, because the project has expanded to multimedia. I love that he has a link called Thanks. I've never seen thanks on a website before on the upper level navigation. He gives thanks to everyone that made that project happen. And that is part of being a community member. Important practice that I hope you'll all partake in. And then this thanks page breaks it all the way down, his publishers, his galleries, but also the people that were the bridge builders, everyone that made a difference for him. So whether you decide that you're going to teach or you're going to make a living with your camera, or some of you may decide, we hope, to make a living with photography, we need great photo editors, we need great curators, we need paper conservators, we need all kinds of people to help artists do what they do. Whether you decide to do any of those things, we assume that you're going to have talent, you're going to have passion for what you do, you'll come to it with a diverse skill set, you'll have lots of energy, because that's essential, needless to say. You'll be interested in networking with everyone, and you'll have courtesy towards your colleagues, because we are a really tiny field, and we love to work with people that we respect who respect us. And I think it's essential that you have that mindset going into things. It's really almost a fan-based mentality today when we think about places like Kickstarter, defining who it is beyond mom and dad. It's a fan base, and that's what your networking really should be about. The people that you see that are using pictures in an interesting way, that you respect as gallerists, as curators, photo editors, they're the people I want on your mailing list. Because ultimately, that's the relationship we're going to have. I get so many resumes that have the group shows that you've been in, the juried shows that you've been in. I have to tell you, when I hire someone, it's because of the blogging techniques that you know. It's because of the website templates that you know. It's because you may speak another language. It might be because you know how to use Aperture. It might be all these different things, camera formats, the works. And I almost never see young people on their resumes telling us those things. You want to tell us that you've had an exhibition. That's not what I need in my business. We need all of you to do all of those things for us. I don't want to learn all of that. I'm moving on in my own research. I'm watching the marketplace in a different way. My assistant manages all of those things for me. She makes artwork herself, but when she works for me part-time, it's all about the skill sets she's already got applying to me. So don't forget that when you're putting a resume together. We want to know all those things, okay? So ultimately, it may be that you're all going to do a little bit of all of it. You may be teaching some, you may make a living with your camera, you may make a living with photography, but I think ultimately it's something in today's world where you're going to all do a little bit of that, and I've always found that an incredibly exciting place to be, without any question. So don't forget to introduce us to your work. I don't mean to say that we don't want to know ever. Of course we want to know what you're passionate about for yourself, so do introduce us to your work. Be selective about it. I'm not a fan of every juried competition. I'm not a fan of every portfolio review event. I want you to spend your time and your money really wisely. I think a great rule of thumb is who's the judge on all of these things, and what's the exposure going to be for you. Are you going to be in a show that's going to be in a small town in the middle of nowhere for 30 days, or is it going to travel around the world in a physical space? So my assistant Kelsey put together this afternoon for you a list of deadlines that are coming up, and simple research. I'm sure you're all ace at research. You can put this together yourself, but this was just a quick search today, and these things will come up in our blog. So I mean, I looked at this and went, my God, Charlotte Cotton judging a competition for Camera Club of New York. How awesome is this? So incredible things coming up. Siskin deadline soon, the 23rd, 26th. The winner of this competition gets a one-person show at that venue. That's a great competition to think about. The Center for Fine Art Photography, this particular juror is a really talented young curator that I know is quite mindful of all of the connections that she makes, and when she's introduced to people, stays in touch and follows up, very responsible to the role, and that's why I'm comfortable in suggesting that. Have any of you been to Eddie Adams? Oh my God, you guys. It's the most amazing experience. So the deadline's the 31st. Eddie Adams Workshop will blow your mind. It'll change your life, I promise you. Incredible thing. The Eugene Smith grant is coming up the 31st. Lens Culture has an emerging talent competition coming up, and the deadline's June 22nd. Great group of jurors. When you look at it, I think it'll blow your mind who the jurors are on that as well. And then photo reviews coming up June 30th. So there's lots of opportunity. Do I want to have you spend your life doing this? No, but the ones that are right for you and your work, absolutely. It may be that some of the ones that deem as right for you are things like this, where your work gets seen on a website forever as if you've made the top 50. We use it for research now all the time. Independent curators, photo editors are always looking for work now that there's these great archives. 200 judges see your work with this particular competition. And then this, I think, is the last one. It's a corporate sponsored award. Lots of money in this one, but extraordinary opportunity as well. So for some of you that your work deals with the natural world and the environment, this could be the perfect one to enter. All those different things will come to play. Who's the juror? Is there a subject that matches your work? Is it something that you'll have a chance to make local connections because the judge is local or the venue is local? Those are really important things to think about. So in terms of my website, I mentioned to you that our blog features lots of different opportunities. There's approaching deadlines, there's grant deadlines as well, funding advice, things like that. I have a monthly newsletter that tells you where lectures are going to be, and those of you that have seen me lecture know that they change constantly. And our new edition of our publishing book has its own website as well. So publish your photography book. We post many things specific to upcoming deadlines for photo book dummies and competitions that relate to the photo book. So I thank you for your attention. I'm really happy to have been here. Thank you.
What do you think of people that put their pictures on Facebook?
What do I think of that? Well, I mean, you have to decide your community and what rights you're willing to give up, and certainly which pictures you're going to put up. I can tell you that I've been at many panels where dealers are not particularly happy when they see their artists releasing new work on Facebook, because they feel strongly that's their job. That's what the gallery's about. They're meant to bring that work to their customers through their own sort of controlled environment. So you need to be careful about what work you want to take to a secondary market, and Facebook may not be the best place to put that. Yeah, it's a decision to make, though, absolutely. As part of your decision about where you want to have a presence, it's a really good question. Very personal one.
Just to maybe respond to that question
Please.
a little bit, you can also provide a link instead of your photographs, therefore protecting your copyright, not having them strip your metadata and all sorts of things. So get tech hip if you're going to do it, because there's ways to protect yourself.
That's excellent
And people
advice.
are researching this now on all of these sites. As to those which are aggressively stealing your pictures and using them and selling that info in various aggregated ways, and ways that you as an individual can protect your pictures.
Thank you, Robert. You're absolutely right. And I think all of you will agree that it's Facebook that we're hearing most often now people are leaving. It seems like I see a post a week from someone that's part of our photo community saying this is my last post on Facebook. So personal decision to make, definitely. Other questions you might have? Yes.
Yes, about people who are collecting your work.
Yes.
How important is to know exactly who's collecting your work? Because I almost sold a piece where the gallerist didn't want to tell me who he was selling the work to, so I didn't know if.
You know, it's more and more common that the dealers do not want to reveal that. I think a lot of dealers are fearful, or perhaps have had an experience where their artists have then marketed directly to that person. So as in all gallery relationships, it comes down to a personal experience and personal relationship. I can tell you that you may, certainly if your work has a particular unique nature, if it's hand colored, hand applied, three-dimensional in any way, if they're one-of-a-kind pieces, if it's an edition of 3, you'll want to know, because what I hope for all of you is that you have quite a diverse and wonderful collecting community, that one day there will be a museum show that will call some of those pieces back and borrow them for the purposes of exhibition. If you don't know where to go to get those, you may not have that. Also, personally, for me, the value of an installation view of where the work lives in the end, whether it's sold to a corporation or a private home. I love seeing the work on the wall on your website, and you'll use them in lectures as well. So I fall on the side of I would like you to be able to know. I think our honor system is that you don't approach people outside of that if your dealer doesn't allow it. Again, it comes down to that relationship and what's acceptable? Great question, though. Other questions?
I have a question for you.
Sure, Anna.
We have a lot of students who ask how to get an agent. Do you have any suggestions for people who ask that question? Kind of how to start from scratch, I guess.
So understand that agents are the last people to get paid. I know because I was one. And I couldn't pay my artist or my staff until the client paid me, whether it was a book jacket company or a corporation or an ad agency, you name it. You're the last one to be paid. In today's economy, getting paid can take more than 90 days, which was a terribly long time, but now we're seeing that surpassed. So for agents to be in business, they have to have deep pockets and very actively successful artists. So if you go to an agent and say that you're ready to have representation by that firm, understand that they're taking a big risk on you if you don't come with some clients yourself. It's not dissimilar to your hoping that a gallery will take you on, but you've not yet built your audience. You haven't established value, in other words, for your work. And for a commercial rep, you may not have established your, or perfected, if you will, your toolkit. How versatile are you? Not only in your technical skills, but in your personality skills, in your ability to work with a client and be on set with 28 people who are there to make sure that shot is right. It's a completely different beast. I love the fact that there are portfolio review events now that agents sit at the table and give you a chance to have a 20-minute meeting with 5 or 6 or 10 agents, 5 or 6 or 10 galleries, and understand what that dialogue is. Ask them about the challenges to their market today. Do they think that your work would fit in their roster? Or if in fact it's too close to someone that they already represent, whether it be for print or for shooting. So it's very, you need to always think about business from the other person's side of the desk, and what a risk it is to take someone on and give attention to you versus a tried and true photographer that's been successful. That's their challenge. Of course, everyone wants to launch new talent, but can that result in actually financial return for both of you? That's the question. So I can tell you that the New York City PhotoWorks, NYC PhotoWorks, FOTOWorks.com, is a portfolio review event that many commercial clients and reps are at, as well as the reviews that happen at the Photo Plus Expo, which this year is the last weekend of October, Halloween weekend. You can have a 20-minute meeting with those people and get a sense of if you're headed in the right direction, if you have a strong sense of a portfolio for that marketplace. All those things I think will help. Sure. Other questions? Dan.
Thank you. A comment and a question. In terms of copyrighting your images, if you copyright them before they are used and somebody uses them unauthorized, you can collect a lot more money than if you decide you're going to copyright it after you see that it's been used illegally. That's the comment number one. Now the question. On your stock images, you had a pyramid with dollar signs going all the way up.
As the
exactly.
more elite.
But my question is, in terms, when you're dealing with corporate clients that sell photographs to hotels and homes and
sell prints, sell print objects?
Exactly.
Okay.
They're taking really 50 to 60%, am I correct, in terms of commission?
It really depends. I've seen 30, 35,
Okay.
40. It just depends. I mean, understand that whenever there's a second party and sometimes a third party in the mix, the pie has to get sliced. Whether you're represented by Getty or an ad agent or a gallery or a corporate art consultant.
So, but what is the price range that these prints usually sell for? I realize there is variables involved because how many prints will go into a hotel and how many will be purchased. But what kind of a range are we possibly talking about?
A very wide range, Dan. I've heard everything from someone that actually wants to produce 500 copies of that image, what they really just want to acquire the licensing rights to that picture, so because they're going to do kind of high-end posters on beautiful paper and then ask you to sign those, or not, as the case may be, where it might be $50 a piece, all the way through to images that are commissioned to be site-specific, as we say, that they want to know if that image can be printed even larger for a corporate lobby. That would be a $10,000 to $15,000 sale, quite apart from your regular edition as a special sale. So I hear all ranges of it. Some collectors really care about you being the printer and you signing and you numbering. Others don't. If it's going to be in every hotel room on a cruise ship, they probably don't care. But I know a lot of hospitals that are buying extensive series from artists that go into every patient room. And honestly, what are we building in this country? We're building healthcare related structures, hospitals like crazy, long-term care facilities, specialty clinics. So much artwork is going into hospitals. So when I showed you the Boston Art Inc. site and their market segments that they define, healthcare is booming. That's the one I used in the beginning, 160 images. So if they're interested in buying that work from you because you made it and you printed it, they're going to pay more. You're going to ask more than if you grant the licensing rights for them to reproduce posters.
I agree. But how do you do the research to find out what prices are going for so that you can negotiate?
Well, I think you make a very good point about understanding the marketplace so that you can negotiate, but in the end, you're the one that establishes the value for your work. In the end, you may say, you know what, sounds like a great deal for someone, but I'm not interested in selling you the licensing rights to make a print. I'd rather make the print, and if this particular sale can't accommodate that, then thank you very much.
Okay.
I really want all of you starting out in the field to set those parameters yourself and think about the full arc of your career as best as you can. I understand that you need to make money, and I want you to, but explore as many opportunities as possible that fall right within what you'd like to do and bring you a dialogue with the community people that you're interested in as well. I think, too often we don't really talk about that. Do you want to engage with this part of the marketplace or this part of the marketplace? I can tell you when I managed licensing rights, I loved the book jacket designers. It was the most wonderful community of people to engage with. I also loved the graphic design community overall. They typically stay with a firm for a long time. They aren't bouncing around like a lot of advertising people are. A lot of creative directors you might build a relationship with. In a year, they've gone on to a firm in Portland or in Miami or wherever. So think about these kinds of things, the corporate culture, if you will, of the kind of place that you want to do business with, and is that a match for you? Are they people you want to spend your days really engaged with? Yes, you're welcome. Peggy.
Hi, I just wanted to add something about the healthcare expansion field.
Great.
If you need inspiration, all you have to do is go over to Memorial Sloan Kettering on First Avenue, and they have different locations. You'll see everything from a complete suite of works by Bernice Abbott in the main building to a series of gigantic prints by Lynn Davis.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you should see this. I've been wanting to do an article about it for the longest time. And I'm actually
we need you to write an article about it, Peggy, for the Dart blog.
Yeah, and even thinking of doing an art tour if I can pull it off somehow.
My first thought when I hear that, what's your first thought when you hear that? The point was made that at Memorial Sloan Kettering over on First Avenue, there's extraordinary artwork all through the hospital, and to underscore the point that we see a lot of great artwork being acquired by hospitals. So when Peggy was sharing that story, what were you thinking? Not just yay. The healing power of art. Okay, can I just say who makes that decision? That's who you need to know. Who makes that decision? When you're looking at fiction design, great use of photography on fiction covers, the name of the decision maker is right on the back. So when I hear that, I'm like, okay, who's buying the work? Is it an art consulting firm or is it in-house? There's a huge international firm called the Cleveland Clinic. Cleveland clinics are all over the world. There was a call for work recently for the Cleveland Clinic in Dubai, a new one they were building, that was on that cafe site, call for entries, from a corporate consulting firm. And when you go in the if you search art program, which is their language, art program Cleveland Clinic, you'll find that their art department, their curatorial and collections department, is larger than most museum departments. Full-time preparators, conservators, 4 curators, outreach. They're traveling the show between their branches. It's unbelievable. So there's lots and lots of opportunity to follow those leads, to your point, Peggy, all the way down. We need you to write that article for the Dart blog. Who's buying art? I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? You know, that the comment is that artwork might be donated. You're absolutely right. That could, in fact, be the case. They may have board members who are noted art collectors in our community in New York City. You never know. That may well be the case. But you want to find out, definitely. Do we have time for one more question, Anna? Ken.
Yes. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Can I sell my pictures on Instagram? Do I need a model release?
Oh, I think, you know, the rule of thumb is if someone can recognize themselves and you haven't asked permission, that you needed a release.
Right. So
if you put it into commercial context, I mean, can you sell that image at an art gallery in a limited edition? Most judges argue yes. Every time I go to an art panel, an art law panel, and people talk about, you know, can I sell an image I don't have a release for in an art context? The general philosophy, I'm not a lawyer, but the general phrase I hear is if it's a small, limited edition, yes. But if it becomes something that you're exploiting to a major degree that's arguable, you may be challenged for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The best practices for all of you that are making work that you hope to put into any market is that you form best practices now and you register your images with the Copyright Office.
I never use Instagram, but I think it happens and you just send it usually.
I think we all need to be more adept at reading contracts, and you all need to protect yourself a little bit better by registering your images. Understand that it's more affordable, if you will, to register your images before they're reproduced. And a little more complicated after, but the asmp.org has a fantastic copyright tutorial. They've kind of gathered together all the articles on copyright from many of the trade associations in our field. Dan, a quick comment.
The thing that astounded me in terms of a number of things that you said during your lecture was that Kathy Ryan, with all the promotions that she gets on a daily basis from photographers all over, ends up finding photographers on Instagram.
So Dan's commenting on being somewhat amazed that all of the efforts one makes to get to the great Kathy Ryan, one of our world-class photo editors, really a curator in a sense of the magazine, would find new talent on Instagram. And absolutely, she said it here in her lectures here and was on the AIAP panel about that. She said if you're a photographer, you have to be on Instagram. I can tell you when Allison Smith went on Instagram, the photo editors that she'd been trying to get an audience with all started following her, and it was her beeline, just with the images, to them on a daily or such basis. I mean, I suspect we'll hit saturation with that as well, but at the moment it's a really interesting thing. I follow Kathy Ryan, do you? You want to follow Kathy Ryan. You want to see what she's interested in. It's a great place to be. Do we cut it off or do we take one more? One more?
I have a comment and a question.
Comment and a question.
My first comment is, I'm sorry. I teach at Parsons, and I'm also a commercial photographer and an artist and a
Can you
graduate.
hold it a little bit closer? Thanks. So you teach at Parsons. You're also a
I
commercial
teach at
Thank you.
Parsons, and I got my MFA here in photo, video, and related media, and I'm also a commercial photographer. And I feel a real, it's very necessary for me to express to my students how incredibly difficult it is to make a living as
With
an
your
artist
kids, yeah.
and a photographer, a commercial photographer in New York City, and as an adjunct professor. All of the things that they want to do. And I'm just wondering, what do you think our responsibility is as educators
Oh my
in
goodness.
terms of offering this information while
Well-
students are in BFA or MFA programs?
I'm pleased that I had the chance to talk to all of you tonight about multiple markets, because I think it's absolutely the most important thing for everyone to understand. And I encourage those of you that are teachers to bring in a corporate art consultant, to bring in an interiors designer that's buying work, to bring in a graphic designer that's licensing images, or a book jacket designer, and have them talk about what the priorities are. My favorite kind of panel to do, I'm actually doing in Boston for the Griffin in 2 weeks, where we have a museum curator, a gallerist, a graphic designer that licenses images, an ad agency art buyer. We have an independent curator. We have a gallery director. I'm missing one. I'm trying to remember the seventh one. But all different people who use photography in all different ways. And that's what I don't see coming to the classroom. I also think it's really important for all of you to understand that, honestly, we need photo editors, we need critics, we need curators, we need master printers, we need all of those things that are related, and that some of you may really enjoy having a career, or your day job, if you will, that's involved in other parts of art making, and support the growth of other people's careers while making your own work. I mean, I think that handwritten slide that I did towards the end about how you all really will be, I hope, teaching and licensing your work and making the work that you're selling in prints. Our landscape is changing tremendously, and where I get incredibly frustrated is when Susan K. Grant and I, every year for, God knows, 15 years or something, we've done a seminar for all the volunteers and scholarship winners at the National SPE Conference. And so many of the students come up to us afterwards and say, you know, I just finished school. I didn't learn any of this in college. Or we don't talk about this at all in school. I didn't know I need to know this. Or how am I going to learn about licensing rights? I didn't even know how book jackets found that steichen or whatever it is on the cover. So I think we have to monitor the changing marketplace. We have to support the trade associations that are monitoring it on our behalf, and recognize that our community is the most important discussion that we can possibly have. And I hope that tonight was something that will further inform all of you and make you even more curious, so that you can bring some of these things as appropriate to your practice. So I thank you for the question. Thank you.